So, one of the things that I like to do when I'm approaching a group of people or I'm approaching a place, and I don't want to ever necessarily try to scare anybody, I make a lot of noise. I'm a very noisy person, and as I come in, I make a lot of noise to let people know that I'm coming so that I don't startle them. At least that's what I like to tell myself. I don't know. Anyhow, we are here for another coffee moment, and I hope you are all doing well. Um, I am crazy for wanting to do this early in the morning, but I'm sticking to it. It's April, and we've been doing this since January the 1st. Well, we started a little bit in December, but it was really in the beginning of January where we figured out the direction that this was going to go, or at least, you know, after kind of getting an idea what the audience was going to be like, which is mostly crickets, for now at least, you know, a direction kind of ultimately revealed itself as we began January, and I've been sticking to it so far. I missed a few times, but it's usually because I'm really just need a break or I'm on the road, and it's that or the other. But I'm going to try to make it for the rest of this year. Um, Next week will be interesting, because I will be in Colorado for the next 2 weekends, and I will be working on the mural at Clear Creek Inn. Um, Hopefully, this will be at least my penultimate time on the mural. I mean, it's the largest painting that I've ever done, which is like 16 foot by 8 foot ultimately at the end of the day. 16 foot by 8 foot. So it's it's coming to an end. I've been working on it for 3 years. So, but I'm going to try to do creative coffee working on the mural next weekend. So hope the trip doesn't wear me out. Usually, if I don't do something like this, it's because I'm just so damn tired from the drive. Or I'm just not, like, in a place where I want to do any work. Or more work than I need to. So, I don't know. I'm liking the direction that these Saturday and Sunday morning coffee things are. I haven't quite found my voice. I haven't quite found. I'm watching the videos. I watch the videos, and it's just like excruciating. Watching the videos of all of these things that I've done Saturday and Sunday morning since January has been really, really damn excruciating, because it's like I don't like watching myself try to do something. So, you know, it's I'm dedicating it to this whole year of just naturally getting comfortable with doing this. So it's like I'm giving space to myself so that I can be awkward, and I don't care if there's crickets that I am going to. I mean, I can see right now, I don't know who it is, but there's one viewer out there. And thank you so much for being here. Um, and you know, this is this is what it takes. When you see successful people on social media, like their TikToks and their videos on Instagram or Facebook, and they just look solid, or they're doing it solid, and it's just like, you're like, how do they just how can they just so naturally talk to the camera? You know, what you don't realize is there's years of them practicing horribly to themselves that you don't ever see. I'm at least to the point where I'm comfortable enough where I can let you see my awkwardness without and be comfortable with it. Because I will tell you, The first 40 days that I did Twitch during the pandemic in 2020, it was mostly just me ranting, almost crying to myself of being stuck in a room by myself. And my girlfriend just left me, and I couldn't go see anybody. And, um, you know, life sucked, but it was very, very nice and quiet. It was just this really weird moment of, like, I don't know if the world's ending or not. It's not at my doorstep. It's nice and quiet, so I'm gonna take this moment and just chill for a second. So, but yeah, I'm sure the videos of me doing that somewhere or somewhere on the internet and saved for posterity, but I erased them on my side, so I don't have them anymore. So they're floating around there somewhere. I'm sure they will probably show up when like I'm getting a major award or something. All right. Oh, good thing to know that I actually did press the unmute button. So for a second there, I thought maybe you hadn't been hearing me for the past 5 minutes. So no, I'm getting more comfortable with these. Um, and that's the first part of it. The second part of it is how to, in these video sessions, ultimately what I want these to lead to at the end of the year, or at least this part of this exercise, is that I want to, like, I really want to be able to teach what I do, but I don't know how to teach what I do, because what I do, I kind of had to learn on my own as I went. I mean, I can teach you the way an architect would be taught. I learned through drafting, I learned through doing architecture, I learned through studying space and proportions and ratios and geometry, and everything needed to be cutting edge, not cutting edge, straight edge, and measured and precise and crystal clear and no mistakes and as perfect and pristine and as meticulous as you possibly can make it. Almost to a militaristic standpoint. And, that's what I came up through. I didn't start painting until I was in my 30s, which a lot of people don't really know. But I mean, I've always been creative, but I hated painting. I hated painting. And, you know, working with color. I hated working with color. I hated doing renderings. I just wanted to be the engineer. I just wanted to be, like, creative on the engineering side. And, you know, one of the things they don't teach you in school is how to learn, how to study, how to look for information, how to retrieve, what it is that the school is actually looking for, what the teachers are actually looking for. It's almost like being told to pray in church. Nobody ever tells you how to pray or what you're supposed to do when you're praying. They're just kneel and pray, and you're like, you're left to figure this shit out for yourself. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, hello God, are you there? Hello God, are you there? Why aren't you talking to me? Do you do not like me? I guess I'm doing a bad thing. I'm a bad person because you're not talking to me. And nobody tells you these things. It's just pray or I'll hit you. Oh my God. So, yeah, that's that part of that. My perspective of a Gen Xer coming into the world, there's my perspective. I'm supposed to study. What is studying? What am I supposed to do? Like, then like a teacher or a parent would come to me, are you finished? I don't know what I was supposed to do. You didn't do it. You get an F. I'm like, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Most of the time, luckily, I had a knack for figuring shit out, and I did. So the problem on that though is I don't know how to teach what I know how to do. You know, and I risk becoming that thing that I just criticized. You know, it's just like, how do you go to the student? Just do it! What am I supposed to do? I don't know! And I'm realizing that most of the time, maybe teachers really just don't know. They're just doing the best that they can. And they're being, like, directed to force cram a lot of knowledge, propaganda, and programming down everybody's throat. And it's like, God. I don't know. I mean, the people that make the most money in this world are not the ones that do the most work to make this world happen. And I don't want to get into a necessarily heavy political debate, but when I look at the comparison between capitalism and socialism, and frankly both suck, I think we need to just take the best of both parts and dispel the worst of both parts and just tell both of that duality to go outside and play hide and go blank itself. So the people that do the work. Socialism is supposed to protect those that are actually doing the work, and it's supposed to be a government directed by the workers and the farmers and the ones that are growing the food and the ones that are making the things and the ones that are making the economy happen. And in capitalism, the focus is more on upper management and CEOs, and it's really about managing the money, and it's really about managing the people that are doing the work. And then those are the ones that are glorified, and those are the ones that are making the money, and they're exploiting the workforce. And then the workforce just can't keep up, and they run exhausted. But then they're fed a whole bunch of fucking lies that just make them think that they're doing, and like, it's like winning the fucking lottery, you know? If I had to define what my political leanings are, is I would say I'm a social libertarian, but not a capital L libertarian and not a capital S socialism, if that makes sense, or social. I believe that locally it needs to be more in a tribal sense, in where we talk our things out. The one that can do the problem is the one that helps lead on that problem, and you take care, you put yourself in a position to help those around you as much as you can, is basically the meaning of that. And you strive to have a space where your community can thrive in and be a responsible citizen within that community. And it's just, I'm done with trickle down right or left. I'm just done with trickle down bullshit. Anyhow, there's my morning creek rant. Anyhow. Oh, so this is what we were working on yesterday. And the whole idea for doing these on Saturdays and Sunday mornings is I'm practicing certain things. Part of it is practicing the streaming, teaching aspect of it. Part of it is creating a sort of frame in a short period of time that I can publish on either late Sunday or early Monday, where and I just go on to the next one. How to sort of prepare for working on a graphic novel, being able to really try to get the image and the picture to say as much about the story as I possibly can. Um, sort of keeping a certain aesthetic, theme, composition, um, all of these things. And I just spilled coffee on myself. There's a lot to the process of creating something. And it's just not like we don't just see a picture. Sometimes it comes in really, really strong, but it's not like we see a clear picture that in our mind and then we just Xerox it with our hands and it comes out. Most of the time, it's like trying to look into and remember a dream that you had, that you're seeing a fake memory from 3 to 4 years ago, and you're seeing certain little, like, okay, you know that there's water in there, okay, and then there's something with the mountain scene, or it's a city, something in the city, or it's in a house, or it's in my childhood home, or it's on this place where I vacationed, or at least we're putting it into that, but there's this idea that is trying to come through, this thought, this understanding of putting words into images in our minds to try to understand this very different layers of this very, very complex understanding that we're trying to get clear about, either with ourselves or in the world around us. We are just filtering it and then producing it. And a lot of times it comes out in pieces. And most of the times you figure it out along the way. You can't just sit there and think about it into focus. You kind of gotta massage it, you gotta work it, you gotta do all of the things that you need to do to try in the process of transferring from the screen that's inside the head to the screen or the paper or the medium that's in front of you. And you're like, okay, I don't know what this is, but it kind of is like this. It's kind of this color. It's kind of this type of atmosphere. These are the things in it. These are the symbols. These are the items. These are the colors and the themes that are there. And you just pick it a little bit at a time, and it creates a feedback loop between the screen and what's in your mind. And then also the connection between the mind and the body and the process of doing it. You are strengthening so many levels and layers and dimensions of neurons in your brain. Like in multiple dimensions. Like multiple dimensions. And it can be a bit chaotic. You gotta be comfortable getting lost in the woods. Alright, so let's play with this rock. So like for example, like with this rock, put a little bit of opacity on here. I don't quite know how the shadows on the rock are going to work. I don't want to sit here and think for 5 hours how to make the most perfect rock. So you work in layers, which tends to basically be the day that you work on. So each day tends to be a layer. I like to sometimes work in 2 layers on a day. When I'm really, really working in a good flow, I'm working in a morning session of about 4 hours and then a sort of late afternoon, early evening session. I try to get right after my sessions right after sunrise and during when the sun is setting, because in my studio the sunset light the light from the sunset in my studio is nice and golden, and I like working at that time period. Um, so I'm just kind of. I did some scribbles on this rock, thinking of like just sort of trying to put some textures in there. You know, doing nature things, you just try not to think about it and just let the chaos take over it. Take over. So, because the thing is, layer after layer after layer, you're getting closer to that place that you're looking for, to the image that you're looking for. You know, you don't need to get it in every single layer. You know, you don't need to get it with the next pen stroke. I mean, I know there's certain mediums and approaches to art, like in Zen art, in where it's like the minimal amount of line work to express the most. You know, it's just like this. You know, it's just you got to measure what is the ultimate outcome. And for me, it's just layer upon layer brings depth, brings more solidity to the drawing, makes the vision kind of clearer, you know. And I mean, I appreciate the really simplicity of Zen art, but sometimes, in a sense, is it can go so far where that simplicity becomes ego, and then it loses the very function of what it is trying to be, like creating non-idolatry into an idol. If it makes sense. Alright. You know, like with this water, I don't know. I just know that underneath this opening, where this water is flowing underneath this bridge, is going to be darker than it is going to be on the outside above it, so I am just pushing it back with a shadow at the moment. It's really good in Photoshop to work with, like, modifying the opacity of your pen, and like right now I'm going at roughly about 40%, so all of the line work that I am doing on this layer is going to be 60% translucent, and it helps create depth to the layers. You know, it's not creating a very hard line. You know, I mean, sometimes you want hard lines, but a lot of times, especially in like natural settings and landscaping and stuff, you want a soft edge, not a hard edge. If it's more mechanical, technical, precise, more precision-oriented metals, glasses, glass hard lines tend to be better to use. See there, now I'm kind of giving a little bit of solidity and form to these rocks. Look at these rocks. Rocks. I don't know what the caption for this one is. Something about a story beginning, opening up a book. A new story begins every time you open. I don't know. Something about new journey beginning, opening up the book, the magic of a book, the magic that you can find in the book. Look on these lanterns now. You know, one of the changes I did like doing is I liked changing to like this nature sound in the background, which just birds and makes it so much easier dealing with copyright infringements because I'm using music that I don't have the rights to use, which is difficult because I would like to have music in the background, but I'm now realizing when I do these, I don't necessarily like having music in the background because I want to talk and I don't necessarily want the music, even when it's instrumental, can sometimes get in the way. All right, let's soften up some of this line like I did yesterday. So yesterday I came through here and I did a lot of scribbling with the idea that, all right, I don't quite know how the color is going to be distributed, but there's this kind of color is kind of mixing with the other colors, and then I'll come back in, and then I'm a big fan of the smudge tool. A way of kind of blending the colors back in and then coming back through another layer of defining edges and surfaces and stuff. That softens up that edge. Let's move bridge this way. Over to the image a little bit and clean up some of this back. Let me get better at making sure I stay on the layer. See? Clean that up. Alright. And the hard part is finding that edge between where you want to blur everything, but then you want to define everything. You know, it's almost Zeno's paradox, where you're trying to get as close to the edge of something without actually showing the edge. You want to get as close to the edge without the edge being there, if that makes sense. And every layer, for me, every layer is trying to get closer to the edge of something in a composition without actually just going a little bit, push a little bit beyond the edge in one direction and pushing it back the other way. And then going back and forth, and each time getting a little bit closer to that edge without ever finding it. That's one of the things that I do in my work when I'm trying to find the edge of something. Hard edges, I try to avoid hard edges unless I'm using the hard edge to make a point. Unless I want the hard edge to mean something specific or bring attention to something or correlate to something in the composition. Open up some of this white that's there with these rocks. I mean, that's almost, to me, that's almost, for those two rocks there, that is almost enough. What I might do is, here is where I would put into play certain hard edges. And it's not a you gotta be very, very careful. Continual hard edges, you gotta be very careful about. It's more like you want to use it to really define certain areas. Let's see if I can do an example. Here on this rock. These are some areas where the rock is sharp, and then there's certain areas where the rock is dull. You have to think the life cycle of a rock is it's going to tumble, and it's going to have certain areas that just crumble, and and then there'll be a sharp edge that is left. There's a constant state of bouncing back and forth between sharp and dull, with a rock over time. Notice that, if that makes sense. So like here, I'm gonna soften up, and then hard edge, and then soften up some of the areas with this rock. I'm gonna lose some of the line. So then when you pull back, it starts, the different chaotic things that you're doing start blending into a rock. The way that you would see a rock. And you also have to think in your peripheral vision, okay? The big, one of the important things to remember about when you're making a composition, and I think this was one of the hardest things that computer-generated art struggled with in the beginning. But if you've seen a lot of animated shows lately, especially like The Bad Batch or any of the Star Wars animation, the Star Wars animation has been like a little bit on the front edge of what they can do, and it's just beautiful, and the ability that they've been able to add depth of atmosphere into their animations. But in like early part of computer generated art, there was always a hard edge between the colors, which gives it the cartoony look. But the more aesthetically artistic side of it, making it more fine, is learning how to blur those edges. And it was really, really hard in the beginning, processing speed wise, to be able to do that in computer generated art. But in a composition like this, I don't want every single little thing in this composition to be detailed perfectly. I want the things around the edges to be slightly blurry, enough that you can kind of get the feeling for them, because I want them to be, the focus to be on her eyes looking at the book. Alright? In that moment right there, the look on her, an expression on the face, and the book in her hand, and that moment, everything else in the piece is irrelevant. It just creates the atmosphere of the subject in that moment. And then it's nice to add other pieces in that composition, like the bag, or these lanterns that are up here, that help define the sense of depth of where in the piece or the composition the thing is happening, so that you can, in a way, pull the person into the composition. You want, and again, blurring the edge, all right? Always about blurring the edges. Not only the edges within the composition, but trying to blur the edge of where the edge of the composition and reality is, all right? You want to be able, for a split moment, to be able to pull a person into the reality in the composition, to just get that extra layer, that sensory layer in the experience. And this is the stuff they don't teach at school. I mean, how do you teach this stuff other than just me sitting here and doing a monologue? And just showing examples of it. I mean, I guess I'm doing it the way that I know how to do it. Like, so. I have any more plant on my plant. So here's some supposedly to be some pebbles. Let's see if we can put a little bit of something underneath. I feel like the thing that's missing now in this piece is a sense of elevation between the ground under the swing and her sitting in the swing. So I am going to try to do and play oh, I'm on the wrong page. Where is okay, so like here, if you take a look with my paintbrush, I'm just kind of add the appearance of just a little bit of just roughness and texture to this ground that's underneath the swing. And it's really soft, just soft strokes, barely touching the screen. You know, it's about adding texture. Ooh, I think I've got a bark. Where is my bark? Leaf, clouds, rock texture, bark. So what this is going to be doing is adding some texture to the. Let's lighten up the backside a little bit. Okay, bark with noise. That's a bark. So, see what this brush does is it helps create that sort of texture to the tree. Pulling a little bit lighter. Get some red in there. I'm liking this red. Actually, let's smudge that up just a little bit. Woo! Forgot about that. Remember. What I'm doing is this orange that I put in here yesterday is kind of blending into the texture a little bit, but still keeping some of it. I want to pull more of it out. So now let's go back to the bark. Really, really cool brush. What I did was when I first started doing digital painting, I found a set of Photoshop digital brushes that were all based on Studio Ghibli movies, animation. So I bought those brushes, and those are the brushes that I use in my digital painting for the most part. Here we go. A little bit more color to that tree. Use it on the rocks too. because it says tree bark doesn't mean that you need to do it. Just use texture wherever you feel you need to use texture. Learn how to use the brush in different ways. And this goes not only for digital, but also oil painting. That darker blue up top here. I think we can do the same thing. Alright, we got 15 minutes left. I don't know what the captions yet going to be. I might figure that out afterwards. I'll be right back. How to do it. Okay. Coming back. Go. I'm really happy with how that rock turned out. That's the trick. How do you make a rock look like a rock quickly and not spend days on making the perfect rock? The perfect rock is not important to the piece. It's in the background. It doesn't need to be. And you know, a lot of what I do on the peripheral perspective of most of my compositions is leave rough, raw, sometimes even empty canvas areas just to sort of, again, the dissolution of the edge, dissolution of borders, dissolution. You know, it's why I paint frames on my paintings. It's not really about painting a frame on the painting. I'm painting part of a frame on the painting. I'm ultimately trying to paint the painting as if the painting's kind of pulling out of the frame. And then ultimately there would be a real frame on the painting. And the idea is that there's these different layers where that painting is slowly coming out into reality. You know, without necessarily using gimmicks. I'm not a gimmick artist. And I hate to say that, but it's just sometimes it's... You always have to ask yourself, is what I'm doing to the painting really helping express the subject better? Or is it making a statement, a separate statement that isn't associated with the message on the painting? Am I doing something just to do it? Or am I doing it for a reason? And making sure that that reason and how you are doing it, it really connects to the subject and composition of the painting. Otherwise, the painting's gonna miss. This is some good stuff. Got some good stuff coming out of me today. I think it's good stuff. I don't know. This is how I look at it, and I have to be in a creative state most of my day. I have to be every day. I am making something that has never existed before. This part behind this rock, I'm gonna blur up a little bit just so it looks gives it. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm doing over here. Now that I've done all of these different layers on the stone on this bridge, I'm just going to take a smudge tool with all of this different stuff that's on there, and I'm just going to do with like one easy brush stroke, just kind of push the stone into place. Get a little bit closer. Just pushing it forward so it looks like it's solidifying, giving it a little bit more substance. You know, you want this stone to look like it's holding up a stone bridge that trucks go over. So it needs to look solid, you know, have to have that solid grounding down into the composition. I'm going to go over to the hard raw image and clean this up a little bit. And back to it. So there we go. So there. And that was just a quick one, like quick run through. You know, it's ultimately you're trying to find a softness in your brush stroke where you're like moving the pigment, whether it's digital or oil, you're moving the pigment into place with as gentle a brush stroke as you can to make it look as natural as it can, because you want it to break up. You want to break up that edge. You want there to be, like, there's not going to be a hard edge between where the stone is and then the air is, because the air is going to be constantly, wind is going to be blowing through there and over time slowly eroding the stone. So there needs to be a roughness there. Yeah. See if I can do something with this shadow. Right now the shadow just seems, if you look over here, there's like a relic of this, like looks like somebody took a lawnmower and cut this little curve there. Let's see if we can fix that. Kind of blur it into surroundings. And what we want is kind of speckle some light in here. I want it to be, start off. Oop, I didn't want it to be smudge tool. Too much. Where is leaf. Normal leaf. And I want it to be light, and I want it to be very, very faint. And oh, duh. Almost a little bit big and it's making it a little bit blurry, but I'll keep going with it. This will be a lot, maybe the last. I can blur some of this in. Yeah, I don't like any of this. I'm going all the way back. Okay, go back in. That's okay. Maybe add some green. Bless you! I knew what that was. Oh, there we go. A little bit lighter. What I'm doing is I'm just trying to give a little bit of texture to the ground beneath. There we go. So like there, it looks like there's vegetation underneath, and I think that's all I really need there. That's all I need. So I'm gonna still probably work on her a little bit more. Let's the other issue I'm having right here is it does it look like she has her legs amputated. All right. All right. That's it. That's as far as I'm going to go. I'm going to work on it for another hour, and then I'm going to post it. I'm going to come up with a caption, and it should be up by noon. And then I got to move on to the next project. So that's the way it goes. Have a good day.